Australia is one of the most biodiverse countries on Earth, and a large proportion of our plants and animals are endemic, which makes conservation a high priority. Constrained budgets in the conservation sector mean that allocated funds need to be used appropriately to provide the most benefits. Recovery planning is one of the Australian government's funding initiatives to improve the conservation of threatened species. However, the necessity and cost-effectiveness of recovery planning has been questioned by many. So in this video, I will address these questions by outlining the strengths and weaknesses of recovery plans, as well as providing recommendations for future action. Despite the controversy, recovery plans do have several strengths which are hard to argue against. Firstly, recovery plans help to create awareness of threatened species by drawing community attention, which may lead to more donations and greater community involvement. Secondly, recovery plans identify current threatening processes as well as potential threats which may arise in the future. They also suggest thorough and often well-researched management actions, meaning money and resources can be directed more effectively. There has recently been a shift from single to multi-species recovery plans, which are often more inclusive and more cost-effective. Lastly, and possibly most importantly, Watson et al. 2011 suggested that some species would be extinct if it weren't for their recovery plans. On the contrary, there are many weaknesses of recovery plans as they stand today. In my opinion, these weaknesses are too large to ignore, and improvements need to be made if we are to reap the most benefits from future investments. First of all, there is a distinct lack of universal success criteria in Australia, making it difficult to monitor successes and failures. Also, James Watson and others from the Department of the Environment explain that once a species is listed and a plan developed, the federal government delegates state agencies to come up with funding proposals, making these stakeholders in charge of which species should be managed without a national overview. Secondly, recovery planning often focuses on iconic species. Watson et al. 2011 states that in particular, plants, fish and invertebrates are underrepresented in the current list of threatened species. Jessica Walsh and multiple other authors from the University of Queensland suggest that biases towards charismatic species may influence where investments are allocated for conservation actions, and ignore other species that may have greater ecological importance. Thirdly, there is a lack of evidence to prove the success of recovery plans. Australia has spent over $2.5 billion to date on conservation actions, and the fact that species populations are continuing to decline brings question to the effectiveness of recovery plans. Madeleine Botterill and other authors from the University of Queensland compared species and found that the presence or absence of recovery plans did not demonstrate a positive or negative impact on species status in the short term. In 2016, CSIRO and Parks Australia reviewed recovery plans of 41 threatened plant species. Additional data on species distribution, ecology and taxonomy was sourced, and park staff were consulted to fill in knowledge gaps. This is definitely a step in the right direction. However, this project costed $115,000, and this invested money will reap little to no benefits if the project stops here. Gaps in the data of the plans may have been filled, but if the suggested management actions on these new and improved plans are not implemented, then this money has gone into making our recovery plans look better, while the plants are still looking worse for wear. After all, it's no use having a perfectly formulated recovery plan for a species which has since gone extinct due to poor management and monitoring. To conclude, in my opinion, the money invested by the government has not been wasted. However, it has also not been utilised as effectively as possible. In order to improve on this, I would firstly suggest that the use of multi-species recovery plans is continued. However, the importance of single-species recovery plans should not be overlooked, especially for critically endangered species. Secondly, it is crucial to ensure consistency at a national level. A set of universal guidelines is needed in order to quantify recovery success. Success criteria should be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound objectives, and monitoring of species should occur often. Lastly, species which are critically endangered and those which hold large ecosystem values, such as keystone species, should be prioritised for management. Conserving only attractive species will not benefit Australia's biodiversity in the long term.